AI has proved that it creates a huge value when it focuses on a specific task.
Welcome to the Business of Healthcare podcast from the Center for Healthcare Leadership and Management at the Naveen Jindal School of Management. Here at the University of Texas at Dallas, we bring together business leaders and other forward thinkers to discuss how best to meet the challenges of a rapidly changing, increasingly complex healthcare ecosystem. I'm Dr. Bob Kaiser, Director of the Master's Program in Healthcare Leadership and Management. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app to ensure you don't miss any of the future episodes. You can also join us online at businessofhealthcarepodcast.com. Unless you live in isolation, you can't escape hearing these two letters, AI. AI is often used loosely, sometimes inaccurately, either intentionally or to create hype or inadvertently due to the lack of understanding about really what constitutes true artificial intelligence. So today, we're going to discuss AI awareness in healthcare. I've been searching for a practical AI entrepreneurial engineer who has many years of experience in developing AI solutions. So I'm excited to welcome Mohamad Elwazer, CEO of linedanceAI, to the Business of Healthcare podcast. So welcome, Mohamad.
Hi, Bob. Nice to be here with you.
Well, look, we have many topics for us to cover, and I certainly want to learn more about what your company, linedanceAI's latest contribution to the AI healthcare world is. But let's start with your position on the public's perception of AI. What do you think the public thinks about this thing called AI?
Well, AI is a very big part of our work here in our company and in the lives of the people right now. So everyone sees it or feels it somehow in what they are doing. So my point is that people have an incorrect perception about AI in healthcare specifically. And this is a field that we are working in with our company, linedanceAI. So the media and the news about the AI is simply giving a lot of noise about what AI can and what the AI can't do. And don't get me wrong here. AI is going to be as disruptive as the discovery of the penicillin in the healthcare specifically. But we are only in the very, very early days of that. And in order to pave the way for how AI can change the healthcare industry and what's happening exactly in it, we start on healing the biggest pains first. And for me, that starts with offloading to AI the tasks that create waste, redundancy, and burnout of our care teams throughout the delivery system.
A few examples of this noise, you see it overused in marketing. You see these terms like powered by AI, with really often highly exaggerated capabilities. And I heard this term the other day, Mohamad, called AI washing, which is just a name game. You basically take these older rule-based triggers that have no machine learning or decision making, and you run it through the washing machine, you get it clean, attach a new designer label, and voila, you've got an AI product. I even joke a little bit. I tell people that I even have AI in my last name, Kaiser, Kaiser. So everyone in the healthcare world, they need to gain more knowledge and awareness of what AI is and what it's not. And awareness is the very first step in the learning process. So let's start with some questions. I've got a lot of questions for you today. Do you think healthcare professionals should be required to be technical in order to understand AI? What do you think?
Actually, I have a big standing on this, and I don't believe that anyone, actually, not only healthcare professionals, need to be a technical person in order to understand what is AI. And there is a framework to that. There is ways to understand what is the AI without being a technical person, is when you focus on the value creation that the AI is making. So when you look at the AI as a black box and don't get into the details of how exactly it's working, later on you may get into that. But first step is to get into how exactly it's being used. What is the value that it's exactly creating to me or in my workflow that I'm having, or while I'm delivering my care, or while I'm even doing the administrative work for the care that has been delivered.
So really identifying the scope of what you're trying to do with this AI. I remember before we had AI, we had BI, an acronym, BI, business intelligence. And, we use that to gather data, to analyze it. We used to create dashboards. It give us some idea of what action we need to take. And before BI, business intelligence, we had the good old spreadsheets and word processors and presentation tools like Microsoft Office. So I like to think of AI as the ability to perform what I call superhuman tasks. And by that, I mean, wow, this AI did something a lot faster with fewer errors than I can personally do with my other tools. That's what I call superhuman. So what are you doing, Mohamad, at linedanceAI that is superhuman? What are you doing that are making things faster and easier that a regular person couldn't do in a regular amount of time?
So in linedanceAI, we have created what we call a human movement comparative analysis. This is an AI where it uses the videos of the people while they are moving and analyze this movement to find the deficits or the dysfunctions in the way that we move as humans. So this technology has three main jobs that it does or functions. The first function is that it locates where is this deficit. It quantify how much out of that deficit is happening on the movement of the patient. And number three is to give a specific category for that deficit that the human being is doing. Like, is it a motor control problem or is it a compensation problem, and so on and on. And we're using this with in the physical therapy specifically, and the documentation of the physical therapy to help the physical therapist and the clinicians to be free or break free actually from the administrative burdens that they have while they are seeing their patients. They get the documentation ready for them in an immediate way to foster their well-being while they are seeing patient, and specifically in an environment where they are mandated to see a lot more patient than they have used to.
So if I understand this correctly, if I'm a physical therapist and what I want to do is I want to help people get well, and I have to go through a process of documenting things for the purpose of insurance payment and compliance. And so if I'm a physical therapist, part of my day is actually working with the people, and part of my day is doing what I call burnout work. Stuff has to be done, but it's tedious and it takes a long time to do it. At linedanceAI, you've got a solution that will create the documentation that's required and do it very quickly?
Yes, exactly.
All right.
And this is actually, if I brought this back to the discussion that we have about AI and the noise about AI and what AI is and what AI is not. AI has proved that it creates a huge value when it focuses on a specific task. When it focuses on something that is very having a boundary, something that is a clear thing to be done in your workload. And then again, focus my words more into the healthcare where my profession is with AI. So like the documentation, like the case of what we are doing online, linedanceAI, that's a very specific task in the life of the clinician while he is delivering his care to his patient. And this task is tedious and it's a redundant task, and it keeps repeating itself again and again and again. And it takes a ton of time. So how many tasks do we have in healthcare that looks like that?
Oh, yeah. It's everywhere, right? I mean, you look at a doctor has all the time putting stuff into electronic health record. The therapists have to document every call, and you can get more patients in and have really operate at the top of your license instead of doing a lot of this, what I call administrative, menial type, but very important work. So That's the superhuman experience that we're trying to drive at, is creating value for a particular area of healthcare. And that's what you've done in the physical therapy area, if I understand things correctly.
Fantastic. And also, we believe that this is one of the best uses of AI in healthcare at the moment right now, due to how the technology looks like. And also because the tasks that the AI can work on are very defined tasks and are very clear what is the output from this task supposed to be. So it's easier to test if this AI is going to react most of the time in the correct way or not.
So everybody's heard the word chat GPT, and not everybody understands what it is, but they've seen it. They've done different things with it. They write poetry. Wow, there's all kinds of silly things that people have done with it. So Mohamad, when did you first hear about this chat GPT? What was the revealing time for you? What's your experience on that?
Well, I heard about the GPT itself, not the chat GPT, like around 3 years ago, when the OpenAI was like building those GPTs, and was talking about how they are going to change how we are dealing with information on the internet, and how it's going to change the manual tasks of writing emails, sending emails, finding the right files that have a specific piece of information, or a PDF that have like or that talks about specific subject among like thousands of PDFs that like we have, or even summarizes a book for you so that you can read this book later on, or see if this book worth it or not. So it was around like 2-3 years ago when I heard about it.
So the GPT, G stands for generative, and the P is pre-trained, and the T is transformer. So what exactly is generative AI? Help our audience understand why they call it generative AI.
Okay, so the name actually implies a lot of what it does. So if you consider the AI, the software that is doing something for you, this something that he's doing for you is generated out of that software in a response to what you want. So let's say this, for example, can you summarize that book for me? You can ask ChatGPT or any equivalence that looks like ChatGPT that, can you summarize this book, right? This summarization is not coded inside the AI. And this summarization is not somewhere written that the AI is going to go and fetch it for you. But the AI creates this response and gives it to you. And that is the generative part of it. In the older versions of different types of AI, they don't have this generative feature, or wasn't good actually. It was there, but it wasn't as good as we see it today. But it can tell you that this is a tree, this is a car, this is a cup, this is a mobile phone. But it does not, for example, give you or construct an image of a mobile phone to you, or construct an image of a desk or a new design for a laptop to you. And that is the generative nature that ChatGPT has, or the GPTs specifically has. And ChatGPT is representing one of the applications that is using the GPT technology to give you answers for your questions or your prompts that like you're asking the AI for. Hopefully this was clear and a little bit like showed what is the difference between the generative AIs and the normal AIs. Because like usually people get confused between them. They say, well, generative means an output. You're giving me an output. When the classifier, for example, that can classify different dogs from each other tells me that this is Chihuahua and this is Pitbull and this is that and this is this, but that's generative out. And the real difference is that those different classes of dogs that like the AI is giving you has been already programmed inside it.
Yes.
It has a reference. But generative, it does not have that. The answers are not programmed inside.
All right, they're being generated. So we got the G part down. The P stands for pre-trained. And ChatGPT was pre-trained, my understanding, with every single written text that was available in the world. Is that hard to imagine?
That's in some cases very, very hard to even imagine. But this is the power of the distributed systems and the network that we have. That the information does not get lost. The information is still there in a black hole on the internet, as people sometimes says, and the people can access it and use it back again in a helpful way that can turn to be something like ChatGPT.
So everything that was published in the New York Times, everything that was talked about on Twitter, as it was back then, everything that was written and documented, all of that text, every single word was trained into this ChatGPT. And my understanding is just the electricity to power the computers to do the training. And the training took place over years and years, millions of dollars of electricity just to get this thing trained up. And so now we have this device that is available to us, and it's just not ChatGPT. What the other ones are? We've got Gemini,
yeah,
and Copilot, and
Pilot is built on the top of GPT. It's a different application.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's pretty exciting here to kind of see what's taking place. Now, I want to bring another question up here that might be interesting to our audience. The process of putting in questions and statements and scenarios and instructions, all this way of talking to ChatGPT or to a GPT model, that process of doing it is called giving it a prompt. And I understand that there's a lot of prompt engineering right now where people are trying to help identify a library of things you can repurpose to make ChatGPT work for you better. What are your insights on that?
Well, it's like the early days of the search. You remember when they were saying those people knows how to do search correctly. And I'm not talking about research. I'm talking specifically about search online. When you go to Google, for example, and you're searching for something, a specific book, or searching for a specific picture that you want or something like that. So prompt engineering is exactly the same experience. The difference between the two experiences is, in the case of the search, you're writing some keywords. You're not writing your intent. You're not writing what you really want, right? So you don't say, for example, my laptop is getting hot when I do this and that and that, and I hear the fan going blah, 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 blah. You don't go like this in the old ways, in the old search. You just say laptop temperature problems, right? And you search. This is when you are getting the best out of the different search engines that's available out there. In the case of ChatGPTs and generative AI, when you write your intent in a specific ways, it could be helpful to get to what you want faster. Or the quality of the result is that's being generated to you is what you're looking for. Specifically when you are generating pictures. So it's a trade-off, and the prompt engineering is that you're trying to make a trade-off between being so specific in your questions and your scenarios that you are building, and being so generic in the way that you're asking. So an example, you can say, give me a picture. And he can give you anything. Mostly he will not give you something that you're looking for or something that can motivate you to fix your problem or do your task. But when you tell him, give me a picture of a robot, a little bit more specific, he can show you some robots. Give me a picture of a robot that is dressed like a doctor, a little bit more specific, and can show you more quality images for what you are really looking for. If you went more specific than that and you made your scenario or your prompt extremely long, he will end up again coming back to the first place where he gives you images that's not actually part of what you need or part of what you're looking for. So prompt engineering is this balance of how can you ask ChatGPT about what you want so that you can streamline the process of the creation of the content that you're looking for, or the videos or pictures that you're, images that you're looking for.
This episode is brought to you by the Center for Healthcare Leadership and Management, the definitive resource for healthcare management education in North Texas. The center is based in the Naveen Jindal School of Management at the University of Texas at Dallas. It plays a unique role in training the next generation of healthcare leaders to meet local, regional, and national demands. The Jindal School uses its strengths in accounting, administration, finance, marketing, and information systems to educate highly qualified personnel for healthcare administration and executive leadership positions. The center is home to 7 healthcare leadership and management programs, including undergraduate and graduate programs, as well as executive programs for physicians and working professionals. For more information, visit us online at jindal.utdallas.edu/healthcare.
Yeah, I ran across another tool that kind of is built upon, so people are building more things onto the programming interface that's available for ChatGPT. And the one I ran across was called Midjourney. And Midjourney basically allows you to use text to describe. It kind of goes back to that prompt engineering, where I could sit there and say, show me a picture of a middle-aged man with a ski hat on, running in the desert on a sunny afternoon. So I put that prompt in there, and it comes up and gives me 4 pictures. And I'm going like, wow, that's amazing. Then I can say, modify that picture to make it a cloudy afternoon or a rainy afternoon or a cold afternoon. I can change it however I want. And it sits there and very quickly, powerfully recreates these images. And people are making images all the time now. And so that has a practical value. Let's kind of look at the dangerous side of AI, what it might mean. What about all these fake pictures? There's fake everything now. There's fake voices and fake video and fake pictures, and it's all being developed by AI. So it's kind of like the internet. It's got good and it's got bad. How pervasive is this fake aspect of AI, Mohamad?
Well, that's actually a very big problem. And with the use of more generative AI, this problem is going to get bigger and bigger. And specifically generative AI, because it can regenerate new images for you and new text for you that is not really copyrighted to anyone, right? And in the essence of the problem is that it does not really belong to anyone. So we cannot come and say that's like, oh, this answer to that question is belonging to ChatGPT or belonging to Gemini or Copilot or whatever. No, it doesn't belong to anyone. And accountability here is a very loose area to be at. But said that, any technology has its own good and its own bad. And it's coming to us as humans to decide how to use it, right? And what is the ethics that is driving us, and the morals that is driving us as human beings while we are using this technology. And as a response for that risk that may happen, there is multiple companies that has developed new type of algorithms that can tell you the fake images, that can tell you that this video, for example, has been deep faked, or that this text or poetry that like has been written is not actually generated by a human being, or it has been generated by ChatGPT, or has been generated by this or by that. And why they are really doing this? Because like, yes, there is a risk, and yes, there is people that can create new technologies that can stand in the face of that risk, while the generative AI has been more popular. And my opinion, I think this is the best way to respond to the risks instead of creating regulations, for example. Like definitely you have heard about the different regulations and laws to the generative AI and how generative AI can be used. But don't want to turn this into politics, but my stand is actually leave the market response and leave the people develop new things that counterbalance the risks that could come up from different technologies.
Some things, Mohamad, that I think might even be as dangerous or more so than fake information is getting biased output from an AI environment. You could have data that's biased. Your algorithm could be biased. There's human bias. And then you run all that through a network training and you end up with biased output. And that bias could be reflective of all kinds of bad data. And I think we've seen that recently in some cases where the training hasn't been very thorough. So when you stop and think about creating, let's get in a little bit, not getting too technical, but let's, at least for our audience, kind of outline what's involved. There's a number of terms that we hear, and I want to kind of put together a little piece of the puzzle with you that talks about artificial intelligence, machine learning, neural networks, and going down to deep learning, okay? And really talk about how do you get there? How do you go from data into an algorithm into machine learning, that type of stuff. Can you give us a high-level overview of the process you go through when you start to do a design project using AI?
So those are like, we can write different long books about those, but let's try to make them simpler in a way that is
sure
good for the understanding. So all of those, like, let's start by like mentioning this so our audience can grasp their hands into that. AI, machine learning, neural networks, deep neural networks, and so on, and any other type of algorithms or a group of algorithms that the people hear about them, they are all softwares. But those softwares run on different types of hardware. So they are not something different than what we already know in the technology. So like, the mailing apps that we have, or the normal games that we play on our phones, all of those are software, and the artificial intelligence and everything that comes under it is also different types of software than the software that we know, but they are still software. So what is AI specifically? So AI is a type of a software or type of algorithms that is trying to mimic how do we think as human beings. It's trying to mimic this intelligence, or what we call figuratively intelligence in the human being, so that the software can react on specific tasks the way that we are reacting as humans. And to give more flexibility to that software and not make the software rigid, that it only does this and that and that and nothing else. No, it can actually do a little bit of different things based on the situation that the software is seeing, through a text, through a camera, like video, through an image, through a prompt that's being given to it. All of this is called AI. Or the machine learning specifically, it's a subset of the AI. It's like when you come in and you say, okay, there is a ton of things that could be done, and we called all of them AI. We came into a group of them and we will call this machine learning. And machine learning algorithms or softwares are algorithms that is specialized in teaching different other softwares how to do specific tasks, or how to actually mimic this human intelligence. As I mentioned in the AI, it mimics our intelligence so that it can do the task, but how does it really mimic this intelligence, and what type of data is required to be able to mimic this intelligence? This is the part of the machine learning. Now, while we know the AI and the machine learning, there is different other softwares that falls under AI or falls under the machine learning, and they have different types and categories too. Neural network is one of them. And neural network is class of machine learning algorithm that works in a certain way. I'm not going to go into the details of the mathematics of how neural networks exactly work.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. But it actually mimics how the neurons in our brain work, or how the neurons in our brain fires, so that human beings are able to make a specific task. And it's very important actually in that field, because it believed that with neural network, we, at some certain point with the right amount of data, we will be able to make or software will be able to make any kind of tasks, or we will arrive at what we call the general artificial intelligence. Single software, a single algorithm that can do multiple tasks at the same level that the human being can do. The superhuman kind of algorithm, as we were talking.
Well, I know it gets complicated because everything's changing so fast. If you look at some of the processors out there, NVIDIA, obviously they make AI computers, and thinking about a floating point operation, a flop, floating point operation per second. These NVIDIAs, they do a teraflop. They actually do 16 teraflops, which is 16 trillion floating point operations a second. Wow. Can you imagine that type of computation that takes place? But that's what's required to drive the training and the algorithms. And there's not one algorithm. There's not one neural network. There's just a whole library of those. And people experiment and tinker with this, and they try to build upon it, and they find new ways of doing things, and things are changing all the time. So we know this is that it's advancing. It's advancing beyond our ability for the normal person to understand. So really kind of wrap up this podcast, what advice would you give those in the world of healthcare regarding the future use as it relates to AI? What would you tell people to think about?
People need to be able to swift through the noise, right? So when something big happens in the market and say this can do that and that and that and that, they need to test it for themselves to be sure if it can do it really or not. Because sometimes due to marketing, and you're trying to say that this product is going to be the best product in the world, information comes out that's not really correct or misleading, and no one cares to correct them. The only way to understand if this specific AI solution is going to work for you in your clinics or not is by understanding what task this AI is going to do better. And when you understand this, next step is to see how the humans are doing this specific task and how the AI is doing this specific task, and what is the difference. If the difference is too close, definitely rely on the humans. If the difference is big in a way that is creating more safety or creating less burnout or reducing cost or so and so and so and so, depend on the value, then the AI is good and helpful at
yes. Well, that's good advice. You want to trust and verify. A couple examples I'll use as we close up here. One of the large safety net hospitals here in town, they use AI in the emergency room. And you go, really? Oh, are they just saying that? So the first question I ask is, well, what do you mean you use AI? How are you using it? Is this really a superhuman thing that you're doing? Is this just a computer and a spreadsheet, or is it really AI? You say you're using AI. In this particular case, the scenario goes like this. A young man has a motorcycle wreck and breaks his femur, and he's in the emergency room, and the surgeon says, we need to do surgery immediately. And the ER doc says, no, I don't think he'll survive surgery. I think we need to wait a while. So there's a little bit of a debate between the doctors, and they're both smart medical doctors. What are you going to do? How do you work this thing out? Well, in this particular case, they gained a lot of data about when is the right time to do surgery. And they built an AI model on this with lots and lots of data that the model was trained on. And they came up with an index that went from 0 to 100. 0 meant 0% chance of dying in the next 48 hours, and 100 is 100% chance of dying in the next 48 hours. And every 2 hours, they gather the data from the patient and run it through this model until they come to an agreement with the right number that says, we think it's okay to do this surgery now. The doctors still make the decisions, and it's proven to be a very valuable tool that the doctors now trust. So that's a real good example of a real world superhuman. You couldn't do that by yourself, making those decisions. You're getting a little bit of help. And I've seen the same thing happen in the dental world where they're pulling out everybody's teeth and they want to put in these pillars and they need to know where the nerves are. Well, they have a tool that's looked at millions of these nerve routes and they go, these are the best places to place those pillars to hold the teeth in. And the dentist still says, no, I need a millimeter more this way or that way because they're still in charge, but at least they have some guidelines like that. So I think if you can find guidelines and use this as a tool that you can trust and verify, that, it takes away maybe some of the risk that people might be trying to impose upon you. So I think your advice is spot on that, really have to look at this as something that is useful and meaningful, that's got value. In your case with your company, you create value for the physical therapist. You give them back time to do what they want to do, physical therapy, and not documentation. So thank you, Mohamad, for being part of this discovery process.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And hopefully the audience got value out of this and helped them navigate a little bit through the noise and what's AI and what's happening around AI.
Thanks for listening to the Business of Healthcare podcast. To learn more about the Center for Healthcare Leadership and Management, go to jindal.utdallas.edu/healthcare.